word to wise. Grass only greener when it's fertilized. Gave them truth in these songs, they prefer the lies. Destiny beautiful, adrift in her purple lies. You can't see me, you Stevie. Wondering how I reach more evolutions than Evie and make it look easy.
What is up, Earth's mightiest subscribers? It's your boy Ernie, the Blerd Without Fear. Welcome back to the channel. All right, so today's video, we're gonna be talking about X-Men number 21. This issue is giving us a little bit more insight into what's going on with one of the new X characters who's been hanging around a lot lately with Jed MacKay's Alaskan X-Men team, and that is Jennifer Starkey. She's a character who we were introduced to in the early goings of the X-Men from the Ashes era. We were first seeing her when she was being assaulted by the upstarts, who in this particular rendition of X-Men comics have basically kind of been broken down to being little more than content creators who are also mutants, who also showcase their shenanigans, on live. And it's that part, I'm still kind of waiting to see that pay off some dividends down the road, but otherwise I think it's just something that's there for flavor and probably little else. But Jennifer was a character who, when we initially met her X gene seemed to be that she could be a fish person. That's what it seemed like, but that actually wasn't the case. She wasn't just a fish person. It was more that she had anamorphic DNA. Cue up all the Animorph.
Go, run! Thank you. I can't hold it any longer.
Animorph hive, where you at? But that's basically what she is. Her DNA changes based on what seems to be whatever situation that she's in on a more adaptive level. Since she was diving into the ice cold water to try to escape from the upstart, she literally dove into the bay during wintertime. Her body basically said, hey, you need to be able to survive this. So in her particular case, her body decided, hey, this is what you need. You need to have more of a fish morphology. You need to have gills. You need to have all the things that fish would have to be able to survive ice cold temperatures and be able to breathe underwater. Seemed to make sense. Well, in another instance, we discovered just a few issues later that she could also turn into bird person and all that that entails, literally growing wings and talons, even having bird-like predator sense, like a raptor sense, that she was even able to suss out people from while she was flying high overhead. Like, not just the abilities, but also the mindset of the animals that she's changing her DNA to match. Well, this issue, we wind up seeing her in an instance of anger. And this kind of shows us that maybe her power isn't just based on whatever she needs to adapt to, but whatever she's feeling at that time when encountering the upstarts and witnessing Trevor Fitzroy talking wild spicy, she gets angry. And instead of staying in her bird form as she has been for the past several issues, or reverting back to her fish form from when we were first introduced to her as a character, she has turned into a more reptilian form, almost like a Komodo dragon or like an alligator or something like that. But whatever it is, a very reptilian, like saurian form, one that is highly aggressive and complete with a tail, talons, fangs, scaly skin, the works. And she seems to have increased strength, agility, and everything that you would probably associate with a creature, an animal of that size and magnitude. And it just goes to show that there's so many more levels to Jen that it makes you wonder, like, what is the upper limit of her power? Like, what can she do? What can she not do? Like I said, we've already seen that her power's adaptive, but if it's also based on her mental state, that changes the game a great deal. And imagine what happens when she finally figures out how to fully control it, because that's kind of the issue here, is that Jen, she has more control over it than she did before, but she doesn't really fully know what she's doing. Not yet. It hasn't really been fully trained out. So yeah, I can't wait to see what they do with her. Like, how much further can this power go? Now, one thing that does come up in regards to her when she is in this form is that Trevor does try to talk her down from trying to harm him in an instance where he's trying to play on her mental state, her anger, try and get her to turn that anger around and maybe join him. But I don't think that's gonna happen. I don't think we have to worry about that. I think Jin's gonna be fine. Though I do feel like she's kind of been put in this situation with Beast where there is some sort of a relationship that's been brewing, and it's been brewing for a while. It's actually been brewing almost since Jennifer joined the team. Even with all that, there's been a little bit of thunder in paradise, especially in the wake of the most previous issue of X-Men number 20. So we'll kind of just have to wait and see. But I feel like, well, I don't think Jennifer would just turn on a dime because Trevor Fitzroy said to. I do feel like there are some circumstances that could push her away. But I feel like the X-Men are trying to build a home for her and make her feel at home, which is kind of why that anger comes out of her in the first place. So that's why I'm more leaning towards, I don't think we have to worry about Jennifer like ditching the team and like running off to the upstarts or trying to go hang out with 3K or anything for that matter. But you never know. Jed likes to swerve us. So I don't think he's met a swerve he don't like. So we'll wait and see on that one. But speaking of characters who are kind of swerving people in some regards, one of the biggest complaints I think I have heard, at least in terms of the character Juggernaut, is that, well, I know a lot of people really like Juggernaut. I love Juggernaut as a character. I like Juggernaut as an X-Man probably more than most people do. But I've seen a lot of people with criticism that, Juggernaut, since joining the X-Men for what is effectively like the third or fourth time, a lot of people act like him being an X-Man is new. It's really not. He's been on the X-Men multiple times prior. So yeah, I think people just have short memories. But in regards to Jugs being on the team, that a lot of people feel that he is soft now. He's lost that killer instinct because Cyclops doesn't let him kill, or doesn't let him be the best, that he can be, so on and so forth. And here we actually get to see Kane revert a little bit when one of the upstarts tries to say that Kane ain't got that dog in him anymore. He's soft. He's gone SAWFT soft with that X on his costume and on his helmet. And as it turns out, I don't think Magic is any stranger to violent tendencies, but that like you have kind of broken bad just a little bit when even Magic is kind of like, whoa, what you doing? Like, whoa. Meanwhile, Darkchild's just sitting there just like, yeah, do it. But no, there's a point where Juggernaut gets real violent with one of the upstarts. We don't get to see exactly what he does, but we see that one of them is laying in a pool of blood that Juggernaut is more than happy to step in. And when we get to the bottom of that page, Juggernaut he's looking almost, he looks almost like those times when we used to see Juggernaut back in like the 80s and the 90s in old Spider-Man books where he looks like he is about ready to break something. So there's that. I don't think we have to worry about Jugs though. I mean, I do wonder how long this hero arc will last for him, but I don't think we have anything to worry about in the immediate future. And then the last thing that comes up that I really wanted to focus on was what's going on with Sugar Man. You see, Sugar Man was one of those characters who during the From the Ashes era decided that he wanted to reinsert himself back into the gang. He wanted to make himself a major player, that in the midst of this vacuum that was left when so many mutants had basically scattered themselves to the different corners of the Marvel Comics universe in the wake of the Krakoan era. Well, as it turns out, Sugar Man was revealed to be back and kind of operating in secret around the same time that Jennifer had hit the scene in X-Men number 4. And we really hadn't seen hide nor hair of him since then. He seemed to have big plans, but ultimately just kind of flew the coop. He's gone. But he's back. And he seems to not be very impressed with what Trevor Fitzroy has been up to. He feels like his upstart plan just ain't cutting the mustard. And he didn't get the things that he was seeking. He was wanting to get his hands on more of these recently created mutants. Case in point, new characters, Jennifer and Ben, who have been hanging out with the X-Men. So he basically sets Trevor up to take the fall in this issue, bringing the X-Men right to him so maybe he can get what he wants. But once all the dust is settled and all the smoke is cleared, we realize what it is exactly that Sugar Man is after. He's after something that is a relic of the Krakoan era. The X-Office is reheating Krakoan leftovers in the From the Ashes era. It must be Wednesday. That's a big criticism that has been levied at the feet of the current X-Office, under Tom Brevoort's leadership as editor, is that, for a guy who didn't really seem to give two shits about the Krakoan era, and I kind of feel like some of it was like him playing, the heel role. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know what he was really trying to accomplish, but, for a guy talking cash money shit about the Krakoan era leading up to the point that he was taking over the X-Men and ultimately taking that responsibility on, he does seem to have a lot of his storytellers go back to it. And I mean, I say he has them doing this. I only say this because a lot of the times, I don't know if people really know this or not, but a lot of times whenever someone takes over as editor over a particular title, they usually have to present some, not fully detailed story, but an overarching idea of what it is that they want the people who will be writing these stories to do. Now, some editors are a little bit more hands-off and will probably just let people do whatever they want, especially if that writer is a particularly big name. But a lot of times, editors actually have a lot more say over what stories not just get written, but what those stories are even about to begin with. We even saw this when Tom Brevoort was talking about what he wanted X-Force to be. Not just Jeffrey Thorne, but also Tom Brevoort was in the room to decide what that was gonna be. So I say all this because, yeah, that's basically what we're doing. We're going back to the Krakoan era, but more specifically, Arakko. What Sugar Man is after is the Spire Vial. Now, if that doesn't ring any bells, basically what the Spire Vial is the base of operations for one of the more dastardly characters to come out of the Krakoan era, and that was Tarn the Uncaring. He was an Omega level mutant who had complete and total control over the genetics, the DNA, the morphology of anything that he wished. If he wanted to change the way you looked, if he wanted to turn you from a normal, regular human being into looking like some kind of a Cronenberg monster, he could do it. And all he'd have to do is utilize his power. We saw him actually use this ability against Storm during the Sword series, where Storm faced Tarn the Uncaring one-on-one, and she walked out the winner, despite the fact that he had literally turned her into what I think is probably the greatest crime against humanity, at least in regards to comic books, by turning Storm into what was effectively the stuff of nightmares. So yeah, this guy has power, and he was killed off during the Krakoan era, specifically during Al Ewing's X-Men Red series. He was actually killed off by Magneto in what was effectively one of the funnier moments in the X-Men Red series. For a book that was pretty damn serious, it was a very funny moment just because it's very likely that had Sunspot not stepped in and used, and I won't say used, manipulated Iska the Unbeaten's powers against her. For those unfamiliar, Iska the Unbeaten is also an Omega level mutant whose mutant power is that she always wins, but her power is not something she can control. Her power just kind of guides her. Very similar in some ways to how the character Domino's luck factor works. So in this particular case, Sunspot says, hey, let's make a bet. I bet you that Tarn the Uncaring is going to win in this fight between himself and Magneto. And because he challenged Iska to a bet, it doesn't matter whether Iska wants to take the bet or not. Her power immediately kicks in. When there's an instance where Iska is in a situation where she can either win or lose, doesn't matter if she's directly involved in the situation or not, her power kicks in. So because she was challenged that Tarn the Uncaring was going to win, that meant Magneto had to win. And Magneto won handily, crushing Tarn the Uncaring's head, with Magneto's on helmet. Tarn has been dead ever since. That said, though, he very likely could still be alive, because as we know, during the Fall of the House of X, Rise of the Powers of 10, as well as the X-Men Forever series, during the finale of all that, the Five resurrected every mutant who had died, I guess, since the most recent Hellfire Gala up to that point. So every mutant that was dead was brought back. And it didn't matter whether they were a good guy or a bad guy or somewhere in the middle. So Tarn actually might not be dead anymore. Or maybe not. But whatever the case is with Tarn the Uncaring, Sugarman wants the Spire Vial. He has gone to Arakko. He is standing right outside the gates. And he wants what he wants. What does he want to do with the Spire Vial? I mean, I'm pretty sure it's pretty obvious. He wants to take advantage of whatever dastardly creations that Tarn has hiding inside of it. And I would even go as far as to say that the experiments and the people who Tarn had subjugated and kind of turned into his own personal squad of X-Men, I'm pretty sure they are probably all still in there too. So Sugarman, if he gets his hands on that, you can pretty much call it a wrap for whatever it is, that is going on. But I don't think we're gonna really find out exactly what all that even is, largely because the very next issue, which will be issue 22, it's already kind of hinted that we're gonna be getting back to the Cypher and Cyclops of it all. As a lot of you may or may not know, the upcoming Age of Revelation is literally right around the corner, and they're gonna be kind of trying to wrap up some of these storylines, anything that's going on right now, so that we can dive into Age of Revelation. Because what's gonna happen is all of the titles that you are used to picking up, if you do pick up any titles from the Ashes era, they are all going on hold, or some of them are even being canceled. Or not canceled, but, well, I'll put it like this. Some creative teams are getting shifted. It was actually revealed that Stephanie Phillips is going to be off of Phoenix following the upcoming end of her storyline, which I think ends with Phoenix number 15. She'll do the Binary series during the Age of Revelation, but after that, she's moving on to something else. So yeah, there'll be that. But like, yeah, so books like Amazing X-Men are just going to be the Jed MacKay book you were already reading. The Uncanny X-Men, I think is, I forget what the title proper of it is, but that's what it was. It was the Unbreakable X-Men. Unbreakable X-Men will be Uncanny. Expatriate X-Men will be Exceptional X-Men. You'll figure it out. It's not that hard. They all make sense if you don't think about it too hard. But yeah, and also Avengers is gonna cut off and be X-Vengers, most likely. So yeah, a lot of those books are just gonna be switching up, no differently than what they did during the Age of Apocalypse 30 some odd years ago. So you have that to contend with as well. But they'll probably wrap up some of this, but I feel like the Sugarman of it all is probably gonna be one of those things that's gonna be like Jed MacKay's off and on story arc, probably for the foreseeable future. Though I would love to be proven wrong. Maybe he'll wrap up Sugarman very quickly. I feel like Sugarman's one of those plot threads I feel like kind of dangled for a little too long. Because like I said, we got teased for it in issue 4, and it's only just now coming up in issue 21. I actually would not be shocked if a lot of y'all forgot that Sugarman was even hanging around. Either way, they could address the Sugarman stuff in the next issue, but I just feel like with everything going on with Age of Revelation, I think we're gonna see a lot more to do just based on what the tease for the next issue has already kind of given away. That yeah, we're probably gonna spend way more time with Cyclops and Cypher and the Splinter Cell that is sprung off from the O&E Zero. I think we're gonna see a whole lot more of that than we're gonna see a Sugarman. But anyway, you guys let me know what you think about it. Keep it plus ultra till next time. We out of here. Peace.